Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wednesdays Live again. I'm glad to be back. I'm glad you're here. I wanted to this week treat the idea of taking something that might be a subject that might be one time of day and making it maybe a little moodier or a different time of day. And you might ask, well, why do you want to do that? Why don't you just wait till that time of day? Well, you may have a reference image or something like this, which you kind of wished you could have been there at a different time of day. In a more practical vein, hi James, hi Kathy. You might want to be, say, painting this at maybe 5 p.m. And, well, no, let's say 6 p.m. And you know you're going to be finished at about 7 or 8 p.m. So that means the light is going to change in the afternoon. So how do we anticipate that? Typically, I chose this subject because we have a blue sky, blue water, and white objects. Typically, what will happen is using this rather unsexy picture of downtown Burlington, you'll notice that something that's white becomes a kind of creamier, warmer white. These areas here that were gray go into blue-gray. Things that are maybe tan become a sort of more rich Naples yellow kind of color. The brick becomes a slightly more fiery orange. In other words, what happens is the whites become a little warmer and the colors become a little richer and more saturated. This is a very neutral stone, limestone bell tower here, but it's getting kind of bronzy and golden. So another thing that'll happen is that very neutral, as it gets a little bit darker, here's the desperately ugly depot street by the railroad tracks in Fairfield. I think it's kind of neat. Other people think it's, so what? You'll notice things that are white or gray or metal become kind of grayish bluish. They're in the shadow of the earth, and they're taking on these bluer tones. Meanwhile, the sky is getting these rich colors like that. The other thing to notice is that the value contrast between the very light things and the very dark places is compressing a bit. So here, the difference between these strong darks in these areas is getting a little closer. And then later on, well, this isn't later on, this is morning, but later on, things will go into silhouette. And you need to tie those things together, whereas earlier you might have seen them very separately in different colors. So, this being a morning image, so too, if you were to go out in the morning and you wanted to get this look, you have to know that as the sun comes up and everything gets brighter, it's going to go to these different things. So that's it's very useful because particularly for plein air, you need to anticipate the light that is coming. And if you want the light that you've come to, then you have to understand what that's like so that as the light changes, gets lighter or brighter or gets darker and richer, that you understand what you're trying to keep. So for the drawing in this, I'm just going to go very simply, I'm going to call that pretty much the horizon line. I've got more below, than I've got above. So I'm going to take it a little above the halfway mark. A light line just to find that. Now I notice just to keep everything very easy. Again, sort of the same proportion. It's a like that. This is a simple shape. Anybody can draw that. Now that we got this poking up at the top here, what we're looking at actually is the harbor in Sorrento. My compatriots from Illinois, we were all waiting around for a ferry to go to Capri. And so now I'm getting these little jugs. Notice there's it's a slow stair step here. I'm not thinking about what the boats are yet. I'm just thinking about this shape. Down a little bit more, down a little bit more. So as I begin to get my, I guess you'd call it my bearings. Now this comes up a little bit. There's a fancy boat over here. In the background we have Mount Vesuvius overlooking Naples. And you know, when you're out and about, sometimes it's nice. The best way to learn this sort of thing is to, you know, go to a restaurant or someplace where you can sit and have it. Hi, Charles. Have a nice glass of something and just watch the light change and make a note. There's so much. Be like a spy. There's so much you can learn by just sitting still and observing. Okay, so I'm starting to get some shapes in here. I really shouldn't draw that, Vesuvius. I should paint that, but there's a wall back here, a seawall. There was a, let's start separating our boats. There was a very modern boat over here. Remember, your boats are going to be, the close ones are going to be a little further down in the water. The ones behind it are going to be a little further up in the water. That's why the stair step type approach. Hello, Becky. So, we just need the big shapes as of yet. Now, I've got a mast up here. I'm going to indicate where it is because, again, I always look for those irregular intervals. I don't like, you know, regular intervals. It makes for a better composition. And, you know, masts, one of the ways you can make water look like water is in motion is if you don't make your masts absolutely vertical. Tilt them a little bit, particularly one to the other, and you can get the effect that, you know, maybe the water is kind of whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. And then over here we have looks like some sort of street lamp, which I think we're going to use. Okay, now we've got another big fancy boat over here. We've got something that appears to be a catamaran type arrangement with a dinghy coming off the end that, like the, I know there's a word for them, but it's like the Navy SEALs use a lot. Okay. And some other kind of boat, yeah, just a more normal type boat. Now over here, we've got these tents or things, and there's going to be some boats in here, but we really only see the windows. A rectangle and a triangle. We can all draw that. Anybody can draw that. Because that is what is going to be left over when it gets darker. So to indicate what I'm up to, I'm going to give this a little more. So, intervals, very important in composition, intervals, unequal. That will indicate space. When things are regularly arranged, it doesn't indicate space as well. So, okay, how about let's under here. I'm going to put some people in as silhouette later. All right, I think that's about as much drawing as I want to do. Oops, let's get that. Sort of a teardrop shape. Look for those basic shapes. You can the basic geometrics, you can find them. They're not that hard to draw. So, let's review what we're going to do. All right, everything is going to get a little bit deeper tones. Hi, Michael. So I'm going to go for something similar to this. This is a little watercolor painting I did of somewhere in California. Bluer, I want to have the warm tones at the horizon. There'll be a few light bits that come on the tops of the boats because the light is kissing those things. Other things are going into silhouette. So that's what I'm looking for. I like this kind of light. I really like that sort of gray-violet going into, I hope you can see there's sort of a salmon pink in here. And I'm going to shoot for that because it's actually, we're looking in roughly the same direction as you would be looking here. I'm not going to, this is more the golden hour kind of thing. I'm going for what sometimes I think photographers call the violet hour or whatever. So, what are we going to do? We're going to do a big general wash coming down. As usual, this is an 11 by 15 quarter sheet of Saunders cold press. Any kind of good cold press, Arch, Fabriano, they're all good. The board is at about a 45 degree, a little less than 45 degree angle because I want the water to shear down as I do it. So now I have to plan my washes. I'm going to get a big brush, big-ish, get some water here, grab my palette. It's going to be primarily blues, but I'm going to have to shift to that pink. Now, you notice this is not a clear blue. It's kind of a grayish violet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some yellow ochre and some alizarin or alizarin substitute to get the pink. Dry that. And then I'm going to come back with the blue to get a violety gray. So let's see. Over here, let's get some water in this. And again, we are downstairs. I'm sorry for the different arrangement. We are still in the middle of the nearly biblical plague of flies and Asian beetles here in Iowa. What can you do? All right, so for yellow ochre and a lot of water, runny mixes. Paint that runs. I'm sure some of you are probably also having to vacuum up all these bugs. I go through a couple vacuum bags a day. Now I've got a red and a yellow, right? So we all know that red, yellow, and blue are the primaries, and that if you mix them together, theoretically, you get a gray. But we'll get a subdued color, which is, I think, sort of what I'm shooting for. So some of the yellow ochre is going to go into the drizzle down when I switch to the pink, and it's going to create that, I hope, the salmon color that I'm looking for. So first, starting out with the yellow ochre. Get a bead going. That's that dribbly bit you see. I come up under the bead and catch it. Now when you're working at an angle, you want to start the color change a little earlier than where you actually want it, because it is going to go downhill. So I'm rinsing the brush, and I'm switching to the pink. Whoop, look at that. We don't care about that yet. Let's get a little more of it. It's runny paint. Going through the now, if you get a drizzle like that and you don't want it, and I think I don't want it because I want some white, cut off the supply line and then do that. You always cut off the supply line first. This is basic military stuff. Okay, now these boats, they're white, and this tent is white, so I don't want them to be quite that color. So I'm going to switch back to the ochre, and then I'm leaving a big bead there, and now I'm going to make my puddle of blue, which I'm going to use the cerulean and runny mix. Oh, okay. Now this is going to look dark. Yeah, he's hitting his boats, right? But I want a pale blue for those boats. So a little bit of ultramarine in that blue, that runny blue. And we're going to let's get some of the alizarin into that. Yeah. Let's get even a little bit of the yellow ochre into it. Why am I mixing all those colors together? Well, I don't want a pure blue. And I'm just getting a lot of blues here, right? And some dirt. Not dirt, the other colors. I want some harmony in there. And you'll notice that colors at night, if you sit and you watch them, they're rich and they're beautiful. And it's almost like African people's skin. You know, they have darker skin, but at the same time, there's these rich color undertones. Oh, there's the flies. Purples and greens and stuff like that. And then as the colors get darker, there's these rich undertones. So we want to shoot for that because, you know, nighttime skies are not that perfectly blue, usually. Okay, so we're going to let this dry. I'm going to put this to the side. I'm going to mute the microphone, and then I'm going to do the drying. Okay. Now we still have a little bit of marking from the drizzle here, but it's exactly under this mast. So how serendipitous is that? Good grief. What I want to do now is I want to come up with a grayish purple, which I want to add water to as I come down and transition into this reddish color. And I think I'm going to use either ultramarine or cerulean into the what I've previously already used. And I'm going to put a little bit of something, maybe some red, to make a violet. But I don't want it to be a, I don't know. I'm going to get some of this, what I had before. I want it to be violet, but I want it to be blue violet. So I'll get a little more cerulean. I don't want it to be a pure purple because I want it to be a kind of a grayish purple. So violet, you gray it down with a yellow, a little bit of yellow ochre, which is already there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out with the violet, and then as I get down here, I'm going to start adding water, and then I'm going to go to pure water. Hello, Diane. And then I'm going to stop. I'm going to try to miss my tent, or my, whatever that tent thing is. And, oops. And my boats. And I'm going to use that as a stopping line. So here we go. Looks dark. Start adding a little bit of water. Picking up that little bit more water. Again, I'm anticipating the change ahead of where I want the change to occur because it is drizzling downhill. More water. I'm going to switch to almost pure water here. And I'm going to rinse that good. And then I'm going to go straight to water. Down to the pink. Rinse that good. Maybe even get to the clear water. And I'm going to try and, well, let's hit the, down to where the boats are. And I'm going to have to dry that. And the tent there. So here we go. Well, you know, I can wait. Let's see. I've got a drizzle here. Drip. Excuse me. What can I do down here while I'm waiting for that evening mood kind of thing to happen? I'm going to leave this light. Notice how light that is now. It looked dark before against that white paper. I am going to paint in here and leave that, and if it's not dark enough, I can tint it a little bit later. Of course, certainly in here, I'll have all kinds of darks. So, I want a different character of blue, because here we're looking through to the horizon, but here we're seeing a reflection of the zenith. So we need to take into consideration that. That's going to mean more, well, let's get into some Prussian. A greenish blue. Maybe a little burnt sienna. I don't want a vivid blue. I want a beautiful but complicated blue. And this may be what I'm looking for. So let's make lots of it because that's a lot of space. More burnt sienna. More Prussian. And I may actually add more of either of those components as I get down here to the front. So here we go. Well, that looks dark, doesn't it? Keeping a bead there. Oops, dribbles. I'm going to start adding a little more burnt sienna and a little more Prussian. I want it darker as I come forward. That's why I use a bead, because this allows me to mix my colors. Oops, let's put a little ultramarine in it. A little bit of turquoise. Why am I doing that? To make it a more vivid blue, so that I have a higher chroma front edge than a back edge. In other words, I want it to be more colorful closer to me than it is back here. Now I'm letting that, I'm getting dangerously close to letting that bead get too dry. Okay, a little more Prussian, a little more turquoise. And this we can play with. Oh, there we go. That's the end of it. Now, rather than dry that, I am going to wait. Going to wait a bit, get a smaller brush that holds less paint. The Oriental. And I'm going to wait. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to blot it, dry it. I'm going to pick up the excess right at the bottom so I don't get a blossom going back uphill. And I'm going, because there's water on the surface here, and the way you can tell that is you look at it from the side and you can see the sheen, the gloss. And where it's starting to stop, you can go into your stiff, creamy paints and you can, up here it's a little drier than it is down here, and you can now you notice that's going to bleed a little bit, but it's going to pretty much stay where I put it. So I'm getting into turquoise and sienna. It might seem like odd colors. I'm watching my, the shadows under the boats. I want to do the shadow under the dock there, but I need to look at this area here to make sure that the sheen has gone off, and it seems to have. Okay, now, there's some runnier paint down here. Whoa, okay, that's going to be a reflection of something. It's wetter down here, notice. So, sheen has not gone off of it. So we have to wait. Gotta wait. Let's get some of this, maybe up here. It's a little drier. I can put that in there and the mark will stay put. Down here it's going to be, because it's wetter, there's more water on the surface. If there's water on the surface of the paper, the paint can swim. Hi Jerry, hi Audrey. So this I'm going to have to make into something, but I'm not going to do it now because it's too shiny. I can see gloss on there. So it's also good to remember that whenever you get paint on the brush, you're going to bring water to the surface. Up here where it's drier, I can do things. How about that wall? I'm going to get some burnt sienna and some yellow ochre and more burnt sienna. And there's a wall back here. So I'm going to start framing some of the boats. Now I'm using a color that I thought I saw some brownishness in. And because I'm anticipating a darker situation, I'm making the value a little darker and the color a little richer. I could also paint Mount Vesuvius back there because that is pretty much dry to the touch. Now that little mess down there, maybe we'll turn that into a buoy or something like that. So I'm going to go back to this blue-violet mix that I had over here. Let's do a tester. It's always good to have a little something you can test on. Yeah, it's going to make a kind of a violet color. I want something bluish violet, maybe a little bit more aqua. And I'm going to do Vesuvius. Let's put a little more turquoise into that. So that when you make a shape, when you paint in watercolor, if you make a shape, try not to have the shape be exactly the same color edge to edge. And I don't know why, but that will tend to make it look more natural. Because, well, let's get some, a little bit of something we've used everywhere, right? It's, I think, has to do with the fact that we are perpendicular to a single sun, and the color is, the light is coming at us sideways. So let's get some pure turquoise, kind of runny, and it will not always be the same. If the sun was closer to us, maybe it would be. Now I'm going to get all of that back in there. Might leave some little skips. We'll call that, you know, the lights from Naples or something. It's going to be darker in here. It's going to be darker in there. I'm going to get some of this turquoise and maybe a little bit of that Holbein lavender, which is a kind of a grayish blue. And just as these, something that is white will tend to get a little bluer at a certain, here's a, oops. The metal siding on this building is white, but during the day, but as you can see, it becomes a gray-violet blue in the lower light. So I'm going to make this awning or whatever it is. Kind of bluish. Let's get some more, let's mix up a lot of that because we get a lot of white boats. Let's get a little bit of this purple, a lot of this lavender, fair amount of water. We still want runny paint here. These are things that were white, but they're going to be more violet now. And again, I don't want them all to be the same, so I'm going to put a little bit of turquoise into it. And a bit of water. And yes, we are at the holy mess stage. It's going to look better later. Leave some lights, just a few. Let's get back into here. Anything else is going to be darker. Leaving a little bit of light to catch, something that might be catching the last bit of light from the, or that there's some brownishness down here. I'm going to put that in on the dock. Meanwhile, down here is dark enough that we can get some of our blues. Let's get some turquoise and some cerulean in there. And I'd probably let it get too dark, or too dry. So I'm going to get the atomizer and spritz the area down here from a distance, so that there's a little bit of water on the surface. And I'm going to try to be, the marks will be thicker and larger down towards the front, and thinner and closer together as I come up here, or maybe even a little more sparse. Some wiggly masts. Sometimes it's good to start these things off of the tape and come in so that they don't look like they're isolated within the borders of the painting. You want to make it look like there's space outside of where you're actually painting. A little bit darker there, maybe some darks in here. It's drier up there. Definitely some darks back in here. It's going to get darker still. A little bit of dark under there. I'm going to put some people in later, you'll see. Okay. Let's see. Let's make that more like that. Bring one in from the left. That is going to have to be, when that's dry, we will make these into buoys. Back side of that boat is dark. Underside of this boat is dark. So let's start it. Catamaran is mostly white. Darks are up here. All right, I think we are going to have to dry this. So I will mute the microphone. All right. Now, we're going to be going into our strong darks now, and that's when the thing is actually pretty much going to become what it is. We may add a few accents here or there, we'll see. We got something to start with here. I'm going to put more ultramarine. I want slow, oops. You know what I may do? I may mop out some of these puddles. Probably could use them, but I want to be able to tip the palette to show you the consistency of the paint without drizzling onto my living room floor. Okay. So this is ultramarine. Dipping right into the ultramarine, some burnt sienna to make a go-to dark. Where are my darkest darks? They're going to be in the same place they are during the time when you are seeing it in sunshine. So let's go for the big ones first. This is all dry. I'm going to leave little bits here and there. Turn them into something. Now I'm going to go into my turquoise. Creamy paint, and it's going to blend with the color that I just used, but it's not going to blend perfectly. It's going to sort of stay put. There's sort of all those lovely little tie-down thingamajigs that dots have. When you make straight lines, break them up. Don't try not to. Let's get a darker, bluer, slow-moving paint. When I move that, see, it doesn't go anywhere. So window in the boat. There's going to be some people in here. We'll make them happen next. Vertical shapes. Oh, very, very dark area. Blue. I'm going to get some cerulean blue. Very dark area under here. Now, back over there, there should be a little bit of a dark reflection or shadow coming out of underneath the boats. I'm going to start looking for some of these dark areas in here. Some of them more bluish, some of them more brownish. I just look for a shape. I look for a kind of a triangular shape, a straight shape. We're not close enough to these things to really define them with a lot of definition. Here's my light. Let's see, we need some darks here. This boat has a dark area like that. And it has a dark window. There's a dark shape back here that is stop and go, and by stop and go I mean it's not like one straight line, it's not all level. We're just looking for ups, downs, rights, lefts, those kinds of things. Change up the color, make it bluer, make it more lavender, make it more turquoise, something like that. It'll tend to look more natural. So you see how all our boats that were white, because they are now a very grayish blue, they're starting to look like what they might look like when they were, if they were, at this time of day. And again, you just, if you can find these places and sit down and get a nice glass of Prosecco or something, and just watch the light change and make a mental note, you know. So I'm going to put a little bit of water in some of this bluish grayish stuff, and I'm going to put it underneath that, not all the way, and then drag a little bit of it into here. Same here. Now, this is where I want to be careful. I don't want to get carried away. I want to look, where are my darks? Now I need in here some brownish, ochreish brownish, slow moving brownish color paint. I'm going to leave little bits behind for the metalwork. And here's the reflection of that thing. On the tip of the brush, a little bit of that. Should be a little bit of a reflection of this thing. Should be a little bit of a reflection of that, but maybe because it's far away, it'll just be some dips and dots. Now, how about a dark line back there? Okay, we're starting to get there. We're starting to get there. Okay, rinsing that out. A little bit of turquoise, maybe runnier, on that boat to make the one in the middle stand out. I might tint the left side of Vesuvius like that. A little with this same stuff, a little bit more of the reflection. Now our masts. Yes, they're white here, but they're probably not going to be light at this time of night because they're going to be silhouetted against this strong light. So get the paint, put the palette down, and these are the strokes that are best. I call them Shakespeare strokes. That "'twere done, 'twere best done quickly." Get out to the end of the brush, rehearse it. If you need to be, maybe use your pinky as a maul stick, whichever you find. Now, the interesting thing is I will make a lighter pit where it crosses there. You'll see this. Over here, so that that's leaning a little bit this way. I want to lean this one a little bit that way. Let's make it a bit thicker here. I'm going to put an extra one in there. Oh, there's extra little verticals over here, isn't there? There's more lights. There's some sort of crossbar on that catamaran. Now, on the awning there, it slants towards us like so, and then it goes flat. So I'm going to get some of this turquoise, and the panel that is, well, let's go even darker. Let's get some, should be like that, I think. Maybe even the catamaran back there where the other boat is casting a shadow on it, less light is getting there. Let's do that. Deepen our shadows. Some of these done dry brush, some of them done wet. All right, let's do our buoys. We don't know why they're there. Except that we dribbled them, right? Okay, I want something darker. So now I need to paint a nice clear. We're going to say that they're the things that it's, maybe somebody anchors a boat to. You can make one a little browner, one a little bluer. Don't make them the same. Use the color for the lighter one for the reflection of the darker one. And maybe get some burnt sienna or something. And touch one side so it's, again, not the same. If the right side of something isn't the same as the left side of something, I don't know why. Looks more like real. Some of that there. I'm beginning to think I almost don't want to put people on this. But I really should. I mean, we need to make this look. Let's get some red and decorate these boats. It's not there, but I'm gonna right along the edge of that just to throw in a color. Okay. How about a turquoise or lavender stiffer mix on this boat to make it look, sometimes they have that, right? Now, I'm going to get a stiffer brush, and some clear water. This is my bucket that has less water. Hello, Vicky. Welcome, welcome. I am going to, right here, just bring clear water and lift a light spot. Press. See how that's lighter now? It looks like there's a little bit of a mast in there. Without being too, jump out and be too forward. Same thing here. That's the reason I used the ultramarine back there, because ultramarine is a good lifter. Press and lift. Okay, we can do the same thing. Where else do we want to? Let's have a sign or something up here. Press and lift. Oops, clear water. Let's do another post. Press, and there it is. Okay, some people. Oh, another place we can do it. If we want a light reflection somewhere, let's say we want a little bit more light underneath here like that. Press. Okay. I want to clean up the front edge of this boat. Press. There it is. I may still come in with some tinted white to make some interesting things. But right now I want to go to a very dark, slow-moving mix of ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. That is not moving. I want to get back in here and get some crisp, strong darks. Let's put one across the top of this boat there. Perhaps something here. There. I need to straighten up that line of that window. There we go. Let's get under this so that the left side isn't the same as the right side. Let's, for fun, get into our red paint and do this buoy red. Maybe that's a little too. Blotting that brush, drying it off. I'm gonna lift some of that out. Well, where's my press and lift? You don't want to rub, otherwise you will get a mess. Okay, that's enough of that. What can we do? That can be a little darker. Oops, not red though. Turquoise, lavender. Well, yeah, and if that boat is underneath a thing, it's probably going to be darker too. Yep, okay. Now, there go the flies. Doggone it. I want to do, I'm going to get a stiff pointy brush, like so, and Just dampen it, blot it a bit. At this time of night, there would be lights, right? We think. So, dipping straight into the tube of this Jaune Brilliant, which is a sort of a yellowish white, I am going to put a light there, which means underneath there might be some reflection. How about one over here too? Which means below that there might be some reflection. Let's have some light there. Now make sure the spacing is unequal. One a little bigger so they're not all the same size. I'm going to put some light spots here or there. Straighten that up. Rinse this. Time for some people. And that will be it. Okay, so what do we got? Darks, it's going to be silhouettes, ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, slow moving, a little bit of water. One or two will do. So I kind of like this person leaning a bit. Head, body. Let's put a second person next to them. Let's put some people back here. There's a guy squatting over there. I like him. Where else can we? Oh, there's a lady over here. Let's put somebody. Well, no. I just want some more darks over here. Now, I am going to stick with my pair over here. And then put this down, get my Jaune Brilliant, stick right into the tube, and I'm going to put some little highlights on the top of the head and the shoulders. That fella too, and there ought to be a little light under that light, right? There ought to be a little light here. Okay, let's peel this off. Oh, you know what? There might be a little bit of a halo of sorts on any kind of buoy. So I'm going to get right into that lavender. Same here. I don't think this would be as light as the boats. It would be a little bit darker. When you use dense, creamy paint, it's basically almost like oil painting. So can strengthen our masts. There's other things coming off of here. I think I would do them with a pencil, actually. And there is some verbiage on the, probably said something like Porto Sorrento. Get that brush really dry. Get a point here. Oops, that should be a crisp line, right? It's a little bit dark. I mean wet. So I'm going to let it bleed in. I want some on that, maybe some, how about they're fenders, they're called, little bumpers. Should be darker on one side. There we go. Let's detape it and see what we've got. Yep, it looks nighttime-ish to me, or early evening. And a very practical thing to do if you think you're going to, say, for example, you're going to start at 5 or 6 o'clock, and you know it's going to take you a couple hours to paint something, so the light's going to change, and you may want to anticipate that. Because if you showed up at this time and you started to try to paint this, the whole thing is going to go dark on you. And it's disappointing, trust me, to see everything disappear on you like that. I think I might want to put a couple little highlights on the top of areas in the boat. Maybe with the lavender. I may need to do that with the jaune brilliant. I'm not going to go straight to the white because it would be too bright, maybe. There's like a radar thingy on that fancier boat. Something going diagonal there. There should be a oh heck. I was always enamored of, well, thank you, Becky. If you want to see these kinds of things done amazingly and wonderfully, look up James McNeill Whistler, his nocturnes of London and Venice and other places, and he was just made so much of so little. Where else do I want to put things? And it's very easy to get carried away. You want to be careful with this. But there it is. I think this is where I would stop, and I would, consider before I make another mark. But Whistler did these beautiful little, tiny little lights and things that would just charm. He did some that had fireworks even. So I've got some splatters up here. I don't know how I did that. I could probably turn those into birds. There might be birds at that time of night. I've got a dot down here. I'm going to make that into something that's floating in the water. connect the right to the left. There we go. Okay. So the big idea here is anticipate what happens to your light things and your dark things. So Vicky asked, what was the pen I used for the gold highlights? It's a color by Holbein called Jaune Brilliant number 1. It's a mixture of titanium white and yellow ochre. And I mean, you could literally get some, white and just mix a little yellow ochre with it and get the same thing. But the trick is you use it right out of the tube, right out of the neck of the tube, because when you put it on there like that, it dries to a level of reflectivity that is similar to the actual paper itself. And it will look more forward and light-like than if you were to mask an area or, leave the white of the paper. But if you mix these colors with water, they gray down and they look kind of anemic. That's why I like to do them right out of the tube. And I've seen paintings by Homer and Sargent where they have laid on paint from the tube. They're watercolors. They've laid it on so thick it has literally cracked. But you go back 3 feet, 6 feet, and look at the painting, and it's just, oh my, it's just so beautiful. So, big idea here, remember that your white things are going to get, as the day becomes more the golden hour, they're going to get a little creamier, a little more golden. Something that's kind of a neutral limestone is going to turn more of this yellow ochre color. The brick is going to get more red-orange. Things down here are going to begin, that were gray, are going to become richer in color and become more bluish. Things that were, for example, white are going to get gray-blue. Metal is same thing. Values are going to become a little closer together. It's not going to be as, see, this is not as contrasty as it is here. So close your value, and then as it gets later, things that may have very different values, like that metal bin, the wood barn, the silo that is concrete, it's going to go into a silhouette. So anticipate those things, or if you're working in the morning and starting like this, know that what is going to get lighter and what's going to get more distinct and what the values are going to change. So that if you need to paint this on location, stick with your silhouette. If you're sitting here and you know you're going to paint for another couple hours, this is what's going to happen. The whites are going to get bluer, the values are going to get closer together. And it's just, besides that, the practical value, I mean, you can take a picture that's, it's nice, but what the heck. But you can turn it into something that's a little more moody and things like that. So, thank you, Patty, and thank you, Kathy. Hope you all enjoyed that. This weekend, I'm going to be teaching a workshop with the wonderful folks in Quincy. But next week, I'll be back, and we'll be doing some fun things. For you folks in Quincy, I'm going to be sending you the pictures tomorrow morning that we're going to be using. You're very welcome, Michael. So, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed that, and I'll be back next week. Bye-bye.